Leaky goaltending cost the Panthers a point and possibly two.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, November 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And shout out to everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix on the nation's #1 sports podcasting network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You can do that all on FanDuel. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers, win or loss. Great low event hockey, whether or high event hockey like we saw last Monday. But the Panthers behind the 8 ball early against the Edmonton Oilers and having to play catch up. And although they scored the tying goal just over 5 minutes later to tie it at 1, the Edmonton Oilers responded less than 30 seconds later, and then the Panthers still had to be playing catch up. Leaky goaltending once again, as we mentioned at the top, was the reason why the Florida Panthers lost this game. They were as much as down by 3 goals, got it to a 1-goal game before 2 empty netters ended this one to make it a final score of 6-3 as the Edmonton Oilers ended their 7-game road trip down in South Florida and getting the win in the Stanley Cup final rematch between the two teams. But I discussed this on my 1-minute video that I post on the socials and discuss how it's been a trend lately for the Florida Panthers, giving up goals in bunches, and also ones that you question. And it's happened on more than 2 occasions. I mean, we saw it even in the Pittsburgh home game, which prevented the Panthers from at least getting it into overtime, where you look at the Panthers' ability to catch up against them, and then the ones from distance. We even spoke about it last week for Sergei Bobrovsky, how he wasn't giving up those cheap goals from the middle and low danger areas, but this was one where he gave up those ones in those low to medium danger, as one went through the stick and then passed him 25 seconds in, and then the 4th goal off the shoulder using the reverse VH, and then off the shoulder and in top shelf that gave the Oilers that 4-1 lead at the time. And you look at this one, and then you're just thinking, man, the Panthers really cost themselves an opportunity to at least force it to overtime if they were just not trying to catch up in the middle of the game. And I even spoke about it on the stat when I believe it was on Fairbanks Friday that we were discussing how only 8 times this season have the Florida Panthers scored the first goal, and this is just something that we're not used to. As much as we love comeback cats, the Panthers are just not in a position to play that catch up. And although they can control play, as we saw in the second period of Saturday night's game, and the fact that they equaled their shot total just 5 minutes into the second period from the first period, the Panthers are just not in that position to be continuously doing that. And the fact is, it's just a whole bunch of not only goaltending errors, but just mental errors as well. As we saw on the second goal, Forsling was boxed out by Darnell Nurse. Marchand tries throwing the puck out of the D zone, but then that's intercepted. But also, when you don't have Aaron Ekblad in this game, who was out with an illness, and Balinskis and Forsling were playing on the same pair, which Balinskis is used to playing on the left side. He was playing on the right side, opposing Forsling. He's positionally in that area. Forsling was trying to go after the puck, and then you have so many guys committed to the strong side that when that puck goes loose, you can't protect the net front, and that's how the Edmonton Oilers were able to get that second goal. So it was more than just Brad Marchand just not throwing it and getting it intercepted there. So and you know what, with Donovan Sebrango getting back into the game, Uvis Balinskis going up to the top pair. I didn't think Uvis had a horrible game. I just thought he had a very horrible moment in that as well when it comes to the positionally as well. But and also Zabrango, he's been a great story so far, but just a very boneheaded penalty that he had on the interference when the puck was at least 10 feet away from him as towards the end of the second period. And you know what? The physicality, the hate between these two teams facing off in two consecutive Stanley Cup finals, you could see that there's no love lost here. I mean, you saw with the fight between AJ Greer and Trent Frederick as there was a WWE style takedown going from the legs and dumping him. And also AJ Greer taking to Instagram, screenshotting some tweets saying, AJ Greer is the biggest POS in hockey, and then putting that on his story along with the picture of the guy, and then got a 10-minute misconduct there, and also there was some 4-on-4 hockey there, and then Uvis Balinskis bringing in the physicality with that hip check on Trent Frederick as well, kind of similar, not kind of similar to the hip check that Radko Gudas had on Kirby Dach just a few years ago, except it wasn't towards the glass. It was in the middle of the ice as well. And sometimes we even speak about, for the Panthers offensively, about how whenever the Panthers are getting on their cycle, on their forecheck, working those low to high plays, that you just have to find a way to get the puck on net and create some type of rebound. But again, the Panthers' inability to get position themselves well in their own D zone, and then the fact that Darnell Nurse threw a puck on. He didn't throw it on net, but threw it in the middle of the slot where it bounced off Adam Henrique. And because Bob was trying to get himself in position, and then there was a bounce, he couldn't recover enough. And Matthias Ekholm was the first one there. And sometimes, and it works both ways whenever it's in your D zone and in your offensive zone. We saw that with the two, with the first Seth Jones goal against Vancouver, where he throws it on net, the Panthers are able to retrieve it, and then he's using his off puck movement to drive down and get that pass from Sam Reinhart. And it worked the same way in the other end, unfortunately for the Panthers there. And also with the fourth goal being leaky, not just on Sergei Bobrovsky, but this is also a little bit of a lesson for Jack Devine as well. He tries to break the puck out of the zone, bouncing it off the boards, but then remember, the second period, you have the long line change, which the Panthers were only able to get a partial change there. The Edmonton Oilers tagged up back into the blue line, able to get through with speed, but the Panthers are not able to close the gap when they were coming and gaining the zone. And that's where the Panthers were also out of sorts. And you know what? Jack Devine is young. Jack Devine also found ways to continuously put pressure on the puck whenever the Panthers were in the zone. Yeah, he's playing limited minutes. He's not used to the limited minutes as he has been in Denver and even the first parts of the season in Charlotte. But that's also a matter of trying to trust your teammates a little bit more and trying to get something maybe cross ice in your D zone if someone is already ahead of speed. But just threw that in no man's land right before Podkolzin scored that fourth one. But the Panthers again controlling play after Paul Maurice made the decision to pull Sergei Bobrovsky after the fourth goal, and then led by the kids. I know the Anton Lundell goal that Mackie Samoskevich was able to win the race to the puck and set up Anton Lundell, who again we talk about off puck movement, drives to the net. The Oilers lose him, and then he's able to get that goal for the Panthers to at least make it 1-1. Yeah, we mentioned the Oilers responding just over 35 seconds later. But the Panthers power play, they're right now, statistically, it says 13th on the season as far as the rest of the NHL, but Mackie Samoschevich's goal was not counted as a power play goal because it happened 2 seconds later. But the fact that power play 2 was able to move the puck, get the shots on net, retrieve pucks, and then Uvis Balinskis, who's taking the place of Aaron Ekblad on power play 2, quickly getting it to Mackie Samoskevich and him one-timing it past Stuart Skinner to make it 4-2 at the time, and then Sam Reinhart there on the rebound just over 3 minutes later. So the Panthers made it a game. The Daniil Tarasov, he gave the Panthers a little bit of life, and we'll discuss the Sergei Bobrovsky experience and Daniil Tarasov more in segment number 2. But also you got to give a lot of credit to Stuart Skinner, under siege for the the last 40 minutes of the game, the Panthers had a season high of 20 shots on goal. Like I mentioned, they matched the first in the shot total in the first period in the first 5 minutes of the second, and he was able to freeze the puck whenever there was an opportunity for a second chance, and he saw a Panther coming in. And also the fact is that the Panthers were also getting their defense to activate. We saw Nico Mikkola driving in and getting the puck, trying to attempt possibly some type of backhand pass for a goal, like similar that we saw from the Eastern Conference Final. But the thing is, the Panthers, when crunch time happened late into the period, and Daniil Tarasov was getting off the ice, Sam Bennett, in his inability to take care of the puck towards the walls, and we mentioned the difference between Barkov being there and Sam Bennett, it's night and day as far as being able to protect and get it down low. And when you see McDavid coming down with speed for a chance at an empty net, and Sam Reinhart is catching up to him, your only hope is for a stick lift, because if you commit any type of penalty on a breakaway on an empty net, it's an automatic goal. So that the Panthers also have to do a better job in trying to take care of the puck in the ozone there. So that's it's, again, you feel like this Panthers team, especially with how compressed everything is in the East, you feel like this is such a missed opportunity because of having to play come from behind. And I don't want to see comeback cats often, as exciting as it is, as much flash as there is as well, and as many highlights as there is. Combining that all, you want to see the Panthers shut things down and eliminate speed through the neutral zone and close gaps and disrupt, and also gain the red line, shoot it in, get a change. That's the type of hockey that the Florida Panthers have thrived on when it came to winning those back-to-back Stanley Cups. But we're going to transition to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss the Sergei Bobrovsky experience. Bob giveth, Bob taketh. And yes, that has been the case for Sergei Bobrovsky in this season, as we are past the quarter mark for the Panthers here. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And hockey season is officially here. And there's no better place to get tickets than on Game Time. And nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets is a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer for your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives the fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seat, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Segment number 2 here on this Monday, November 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day on the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And yeah, this is lately we've seen a high goal total for the Panthers. And when the Panthers have struggled to get goals on the board, you need to have the defense play tight in their own end. And you also got to have your goaltender sometimes bail you out in those situations. And the Panthers aren't as constructed, can't afford to have those goals go in early on and to play from behind. And I'm going to go back to a quote that Paul Maurice said on Thursday after the Panthers shut out the New Jersey Devils by a final score of 1-0. And listen, a great performance. And also the Panthers were able to protect Sergei Bobrovsky well. And I'm going to go back to the quote saying, quote, chances are if he has one bad game that you're going to like the next one, close quote. And you know what? We've seen this so many times before from Sergei Bobrovsky, but it's a little bit of the up and down, teeter-totter, and yes, a lot has to do with how much hockey he's played, but at the same time, you know that the Panthers are not going to be satisfied if they end up missing the postseason, even with everyone out. And you know what? Also give a lot of credit to the Panthers with how they're playing with those guys out. I mean, you see the system is still very well intact. You still see so much buy-in from the group. There's still so much hunger from the entirety of the team there. But Daniil Tarasov giving the Panthers a chance in playing 32 minutes just over, with Sergei Bobrovsky being pulled just after the Podkolzin goal. But Daniil Tarasov, I continue to be so impressed by him. Where yeah, you see the record, only one win for him, and also the fact that he was able to make multiple stops when I mentioned the Donovan Zabrango penalty earlier, but there was an opportunity where on that PK where the Panthers were down, there a loose puck, and then Daniil Tarasov being able to make the stop on Connor McDavid, and then a breakaway chance for Leon Draisaitl towards the end, and able to stretch the leg and get a stop right before the period ended. And also when Connor McDavid was coming down on a breakaway opportunity, how he was quickly able to use that poke check in order to separate the puck, and also not giving him an opportunity for a high quality chance. So continue to be impressed by Daniil Tarasov there for what he's been doing in this season. Gets down low very quickly, very uses his and although he's a big body 6'6", he's been able to react quickly. He's using his technique instead of trying to use more of his body. And although and it helps whenever he is at his size and he has great technique, that when he does go to the top of the crease and take away the angles, that's why he's been able to stop so many pucks this year. And you just wish once again that he had they had more to show for him in his games. But here's the thing: he only faced 12 shots when he came in. That is around it's around, if you look at a full 60 for Daniil Tarasov, and also what the Panthers have been able to do in his appearances. The Panthers averaged 23 shots against per game. But in those 32 minutes that he was in, it's around, the average is around that area, half of that. So the Panthers are still playing a good brand of hockey defensively, and playing a lot tighter when Daniil Tarasov is in. And Paul Maurice pressing the right button there to at least make it a game and more respectable. And yeah, you zoom out 6-3, 2 empty net goals, make it make it look like less respectable. But the Panthers were able to just wake up. It was like their cup of coffee. I know Paul Maurice says for these type of games you don't need to have a cup of coffee in order to be awake, but the fact that Sergei Bobrovsky was pulled, that was it for them in order to have them wake up. And also, we've seen this before, how the Panthers have been able to play against these speedier teams, where they're able to maybe freelance a little bit more whenever it comes to odd man rushes, and there isn't necessarily a script when it comes to if one defenseman back is still staying in the middle, backing in versus working at the blue line, how that the Panthers are able to still stop opportunities and also not give away those opportunities to begin with. That's how you know that the Panthers are still once again in such a great place as far as their roster construction there. But again, you don't want to depend on falling behind in order for that to happen. But and here's a crazy stat for Daniil Tarasov. He's had 5 relief appearances in his NHL career. You know how many goals he's given up in 5 relief appearances? He hasn't given up a single one. So you think that with a he's still very young, obviously, but you think that where you're coming into warmups, and not just warmups, but you're coming to the building, you're going through a morning skate, you're not in the starter's crease, and your routine, yeah, you still do your stretches when you're on the ice, but you're not mentally in the position to be to be going in the game. Yeah, you have to be prepared at any single moment, but Daniil Tarasov still having the opportunity to go in those relief appearances throughout his career, and still be in a position where he hasn't given up one. He hasn't given up one that's impressive, and just goes to show that that once again, you gotta applaud the front office for the Florida Panthers for doing their homework and for looking at an opportunity to get a guy into the mix for to see what life could be without Sergei Bobrovsky, or even if they continue to run this tandem next year. I'm very encouraged by Daniil Tarasov there. But again, you want you wish that the Panthers could have gotten at least one more. I spoke about Sam Bennett and his struggle to keep the puck into the ozone there right before they scored quickly on the empty net. But Carver Hagee only had one shot on goal throughout the game, and again, his shooting percentage from 2 years ago is almost down 10%. That is a problem, and again, Carter Hagee is not also one guy who carries a line necessarily, but this is concerning. This is not just a blip on the radar for Carter Hagee. It's now over a year's worth of games in the regular season that he is not coming in clutch. And yeah, once the postseason hit, all bets are off with Carter Hagee. I'm gonna be looking for him to come to come in the clutch. Not often, but whenever the Panthers need it most, then he's there. That's the Carter Hagee experience. I know this segment is the Sergei Bobrovsky experience, but that is it with the Carter Hagee experience. Yeah, he got that game-winning goal off in Boston, in the fifth or sixth game of the season, but hey, thankfully, that's still a game-winning goal for Carter Hagee as it took a bounce off of Andrew Peeke. But still, you wish that you could see more of him just getting puck in space, and then also those opportunities to shoot from distance. But the fact that he's playing more defensively and lower in his own end, and the fact that the Panthers aren't really a fast transition type of team, that kind of hurts Carter Hagee when the center that he's usually playing with usually is able to give him those return feeds on give and goes. That's where Carter Hagee also, that's another part of his game that is also very great whenever it comes to his ability to get the puck through the back of the net. So concerning for Carter Hagee, at least early on. Not early on. We're again quarter of the way through the year, but Palmer's did say that Daniil Tarasov, going back to the goaltending, that Daniil Tarasov, he's going to be starting in Nashville on Monday night, and the fact is that he was able to get in the game on Saturday. Nice little warm up that he's gonna be coming into the game on Monday in a little bit of a routine. Although he's not the main starter for the Panthers, that this is a kind of way of getting him warmed up for another big game on the road, as this is a rare road game, at least for this in these last few weeks for the Panthers, as they had a few games, one road game, and then they're right back at home, right back on Wednesday. So let's actually transition to segment number 3, where we'll preview that and more next, as the Panthers will be making their trip to Broadway in Nashville. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score to next fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Third and final segment here on this Monday, November 24th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So the Florida Panthers will be facing off against the Nashville Predators tonight from Bridgestone Arena, and this is a team that the Panthers are facing that has underachieved, to put it lightly, and they have the worst record right now in the NHL. And the Panthers, big game last year that they played in Nashville. Let's not forget, Eetu Luostarinen was out of the lineup due to the birth of his child, and Justin Sourdif was called up for one game, and then he scored a big goal to help the Panthers win in that one. Also, this was the game last year that Sam Bennett knocked out Roman Josi. He wasn't able to return at all in the season. And for this game, it's the dad's trip for the Panthers. So the dads went on the plane with the team. They're gonna be having they're gonna have a suite together for the game. They might be going to walking around Broadway and maybe getting a cowboy hat prior to the game. So hope the dads have a great time for around the team, and also some camaraderie there. But Nashville is a team that is underachieved in the last few years. 23-24, they were supposed to have a team gathering at a concert at the Sphere to go see U2, and then after that they go on a little bit of a run, make the playoffs, but then get bounced out in the first round against the Vancouver Canucks there. But again, they were rewarded by free agent signings of Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea, and it hasn't gotten any better, and they still have a hard time scoring goals. They're dead last in the NHL in goals per game at 2.29 goals for. And here's the thing: they also were able to play a low event game against the Colorado Avalanche, controlled play. It was 1-0 at home, and they were still not able to get to tie the game and at least force it into overtime. So they are struggling. But also, this is a team that lacks a lot of depth down the middle at center. Ryan O'Reilly is their top line center, and in 2025, Ryan O'Reilly is a guy that you use for maybe your second or third line. He's not a guy that you use on your top line. He could play well defensively, but he's not going to be the one who's going to be consistently driving a line as much in 2025. And it's crazy. Ryan O'Reilly had a quote a few weeks ago, about how he's only had one great year in the NHL, which I believe he's referring back to 2019 when he won the Conn Smythe as a member of the St. Louis Blues, but then trying to put losses on himself, but then that didn't go great in the locker room, which I have a hard time understanding there, when you're trying to take self-accountability, but then going a little bit too far of only one great year when he's actually been a pretty decent player in his career, and a guy who a lot of people respect. He doesn't have a no trade clause in his contract, but the front office of the Nashville Predators are treating him as he does. Like I mentioned, they struggled down the middle, and they drafted 5th overall last draft Brady Martin, but he's not NHL ready yet, as he's made his way back to the OHL. I actually got an opportunity to see Brady Martin play in person when the Panthers played the Predators in their rookie showcase tournament out in Wesley Chapel. I got to see Brady Martin there for a little bit there. But again, when it comes to Nashville, they're going to be one of those teams who are going to be selling, and teams to look out for of guys of teams that might need a center, like O'Reilly. Montreal could use one. Vancouver could use. New Jersey is going to be a little bit difficult because they are so up towards the cap that it's going to be a little harder when with Jack Hughes out, and it's not going to be a season-long thing for Jack Hughes being out. So New Jersey's maybe unlikely, but they might test the waters there on what they could possibly do to maybe bring him in a trade. But one encouraging player for Nashville this year has been Matthew Wood, 10 points in 14 games, and he's played 2 games in the AHL for Milwaukee, but he's played the majority of this season on the NHL squad there, and he was drafted just 2 years ago in the 2023 draft, but not a center. That's the issue for how the Panthers could possibly expose this team down the middle. But there's so many great pieces there. Philip Forsberg, who could score 40 goals. Roman Josi, top pair defenseman. UC Saros has been the least of the Predators' issue. His save percentage is around league average. His goal save above expected is not in the negatives. So they're just not backing him up with goals. And Trotz said that he wasn't going to be hesitant once again for a rebuild, but he hasn't made the moves as far as getting guys out. I know Stamkos has a no move clause, and after this year, it's going to be 2 years of $8 million. So he has to approve the trade first of all. So that puts them in a really tough position. The contract negotiations with Luke Evangelista took until training camp for him to get something signed, and that's a young player who's a big part of this team who didn't get a full training camp there. So they were also behind the eight ball there. And also Andrew Brunette, he was on the hot seat last year. They didn't let him go after the season, and there's new ownership there. So they're probably taking a little bit of a patient approach. Andrew Brunette is owed a good amount for apparently that's what the rumor has, but but again, the discussions around this team is, does Barry Trotz go back behind the bench? He hasn't done it in a while since he's been on Long Island with the New York Islanders since they let him go. Now it's just a few years. He's in a position where he possibly doesn't want to coach anymore. Yeah, and it's a little it's a and again, that might be the wake up call that this team might need, because I know general managers are usually not coaches in this day and age in the NHL. It used to be the norm, but when you have the guy going behind the bench who is the general manager and the head coach as well, it puts everyone on notice. The fact that someone there is really working personally with the group. So I say, why not make the move if you are Barry Trotz? I know, and then he could go right back upstairs and hire a new coach next year. But I feel like this may be a money issue for the Nashville Predators on why they don't want to let Andrew Brunette go. They might wait until the end of the regular season. Like, you're talking 9 points out, and it's almost the American Thanksgiving deadline. And we've discussed so many times on the show over the years how when you get to that deadline and that benchmark, excuse me, how your likelihood of making the postseason is very slim if you're that far out. Around 4 points is around the the point where you want to at least be to be within range. I mean, the Panthers were struggling out of the gate in 2023, and we're still within distance in order to make the playoffs, which eventually they did, made the Stanley Cup final. But this team is just so behind right now in the standings that I'm surprised that they haven't made a move through and we're here at November 24th. So kind of confusing of why they haven't done it, but this might just be a play it out situation and also reset in the offseason once again. But again, this is a mess that it was created by the general manager. So it might be more of the front office taking a look in the mirror and saying, hey, I didn't give him the best resources in order to succeed. But he might just not Andrew Brunette, former Panthers interim head coach, might not survive this either way. So we'll see what happens tonight when the Panthers take on the Preds. We'll see the status of Aaron Ekblad, as the Panthers will take the ice at 12:30 Eastern time for morning skate. Daniil Tarasov is once again expected to be between the pipes for the Florida Panthers. And let's see if the Panthers can once again get the first goal of the game and play a shutdown style as we are used to seeing whenever they do take the ice there. But we'll see there. But we will be back to break down all that and more on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for tuning in and listening. So thank you once again, and see you guys tomorrow. And in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Steele Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.